My cat likes to wake me up at 5:30 in the morning. I've gotten used to it. But do you know what you do when it's 5:30 in the morning and you don't use social media so you can't doom scroll? You read. I have read 7 books in the past 24 hours. Let's look at them. I started off with Spinning by Tilly Walden. This is an autobiographical graphic novel about Walden's experience figure skating throughout her youth and the themes of queerness and assault and vigorous artistic ingenuity and physical expression and friendship and loss that came with that. This is a book that at points left me nauseous. It left me quite literally staring at the wall when I was done with it. I went into it having no idea of what to expect. I saw it, thought it was either about figure skating or ballet, and took it out of a box from a stoop, which is the best way to find books in Brooklyn. And this is definitely one of the best finds I've had. It's tender and sweet and queer and nostalgic, and I am obsessed with stories about somebody pouring themselves into something wholeheartedly, especially an artistic or athletic endeavor. And I think that this is a great illustration of that. It also just has great illustrations, and so it was really enticing. And it's what inspired me to keep reading for the next 24 hours because I just needed something that matched that feeling. Nerve Damage by Anakira Stinson. Anakira is my friend. Hi Anakira, if you're watching this. This is her debut novel, and it is being marketed as a revenge tale of a woman who stalks her stalker ex-boyfriend. But I think revenge tale implies a level of action that isn't common to the book. I would say that this book is not slow, but methodical in its pacing. There are points where it can become slow, but what it is really about is paranoia and the mental breakdowns that come with paranoia and the trauma and abuse and distrust that lead to that paranoia. Because it is about that, it can be hard to find a likable character sometimes. And it is admittedly hard for me to read things where I don't have a likable character to latch to. Luckily, Maxine exists, who's my favorite side character in this, and also I think that that dislikability really contributes to the theme, which is the idea of mental distrust and the idea of mental spiral and the idea of what toxicity does to somebody. This is a book that's really riveting to be something where I know the author, because it's really interesting to see what I can tell is autobiographical and what I can tell is fiction. And Anakira is really good at fiction. That is not to say that it is without flaw, but that is to say that the flaws that do exist, be they in pacing or character, contribute to the feeling. If there were flaws that made me bored, that would be something else. But the fact that the flaws incited in me a sense of disgust or anger or annoyance, which is what was supposed to be there, is really a testament to good writing. Also, some of the best chapter endings, even for the chapters that I wasn't as into, all of them end with really nicely worded lines and really intense emotions. So Anakira, I'm really proud of you, and thank you for the note. I had a recording issue, so if my enthusiasm is suddenly down, do not think that it's because of a lack of quality in the books. From one artist that I consider a friend to the next, this is Love Story from the End of the World by Joo-hae Kim. This is a compilation of short stories written over the course of a decade. And I think what's interesting about that is that obviously when there are short stories that are not originally intended to be together, some of them are going to be more investing than others. But I think when you have something that's written over such a long course of time, you can see the rough edges and author identity come to shape. Joo-hae Kim comes fully formed. She has already written 2 of my favorite books of the decade, if not of all time, Beast of the Little Land and City of Nightbirds. So I wanted to get my hands on this as soon as possible and got it for Christmas, only to end up reading it now on the first day of summer. And I'm actually glad that my life went crazy and that I wasn't able to read it immediately. Because reading it on a day where Brooklyn feels like a swamp, where the humidity and the rain and the heat are just choking me out, was the better option. This is a book where a lot of the stories take place in a post-apocalypse or an apocalypse or even just a modern day where climate change has affected so much and particularly affected relationships. Relationships with animals, relationship with work, relationship with other people, relationships with society. The one that stood out to me the most was the story of Black, the story of an indigenous person and what that means to them. And I think why that stood out to me is because this book comes with an incredibly strong author's note, probably one of my favorites that I've ever read, and it's a call to action of what love can do in the face of man-made climate change, and what veganism can do as well. We have the data to prove that man-made climate change as it has been invented and man-made hunger as it has been invented could be healed just by agriculture, just by vegan diets. To expect the entire world to convert to veganism is kind of crazy. But the thing about indigenous cultures is that they have such a spiritual attachment to animals, such an attachment to the sentience and relativeness of other beings, that a lot of their meat consumption comes through necessity and comes through calming practices, respectful practices, practices that don't have to do with overconsumption. I think if the world in total carried that, then there would be not only less to deal with when it came to the damage to the climate, but also just a general sense of respect and love running through more citizens. I think that's the sentiment that's carried here, even when there are stories that I consider better than the other, or stories that I consider more investing than the other. That sentiment runs through the whole thing, and so I think that absolutely makes this a worthy read. Personally, though, I'll read anything Juhei Kim writes, so I might just be too biased. Complete change of pace. This one's gonna be fast. I read Captor Sakura, the collector's edition, out on my balcony yesterday, eating strawberry shortcake to make myself feel more like a shoujo girl, to end spring and begin summer. And this is a series I love. It's so cute, it's so sweet, and it just has art that I really appreciate, and queerness that I really appreciate. That's all I have to say about that. I don't think I am going to be the person to convince you to read or watch Captor Sakura if you haven't already. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Another book that I found in a box on a stoop. Again, this is how the best books are found. This book, the first note that I wrote in my annotations was Morrison-esque. This book sort of feels like if Toni Morrison wrote 100 Years of Solitude, in terms of its intergenerational aspects. It is about two black twins who are white passing. One of them lives their lives as black, one of them lives her life as white, and the effect that that has on their family and everybody around them. I called it Morrison-esque because in The Bluest Eye and in this, the first page is the entire story, and it is essentially an author invitation. Will you find out how this story happened the way that it happened? It had an incredibly powerful beginning and an incredibly powerful ending. I was really choked up by the end of it. And it has so many interweaving plots of not only racism and colorism and blackness as it exists in conversation with whiteness and under the controlling master narrative of whiteness, but also blackness as it exists in its own community and in its own independent identity, and the colorist themes that that comes with, yes, but also the themes of maternity that that comes with, the themes of sisterhood that that comes with. It is beautifully written. There were parts in the middle that were hard to get through, not only just because of content, but also because of pacing, and because once you introduce more characters and more perspectives, things tend to switch around a bit. Like the past two books, sometimes different characters lead to different levels of investment, but an incredibly powerful story that I think deserves all of the acclaim that it has gotten so far. Queer horror, fun and freaky perspectives on macabre media, was a birthday gift. Thanks, Kat. That's the second Kat shout out that's been in these videos. It's a really fast read. Queerness is interconnected with horror basically from the beginning. It is a list, essentially, of different short stories and articles written by the authors about their experiences as queer people watching different horror movies. And it introduced me to some new things and to some new perspectives on things I've already seen. Horror isn't my favorite genre to watch, but it is my favorite genre to study because it says the most about humanity and relationships. And I think that this book is just a fun little testament to that. Really short read, essentially just a compilation of listicles and articles, but I don't mind that. I don't mind that for a Sunday morning. The last book I read in this 24-hour period from 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. was To the End of the Line, a novel by Sage Greer. Yes, that is a Stucky reference for anybody wondering. I met Sage at the Brooklyn Book Festival last year, and they just had a lovely personality, and we talked about fan fiction for a long time, and this is a lovely little queer novel. I personally don't like slow burn. That's just something about me. I feel like if you really do love slow burn, then this one is for you. It has a very simple writing style, but it's the type of simple writing style that captures emotions well. I will say there are characters that I relate to, and I particularly love things that star characters in the midst of study. Every one of these chapters ends with an email from a colleague or a professor, which I think is a really interesting way to segue and show what different relationships are developing at what pace. So even if personally the form of the romance wasn't for me, I thought the form of the book had a lot of interesting tidbits. But again, just a simple little queer love story. So not the most riveting thing, but not offensive in any way, and had some sweet emotions entangled into it. Read more fan fiction. So yeah, that was just a quick little ramble, based on the fact that my cat has been haunting my every waking hour, as have books. So I guess just like, comment, subscribe. Tell me if that was too rambly and you would like me to be more scripted. Tell me if that wasn't rambly enough and you want me to go on each book for like 40 minutes and go into spoilers. I will soon be uploading a video of every single book that I read in the past spring, seeing as it is the first day of summer. And in the meantime, I hope that you have a very good summer that is filled with reading and sleep that goes uninterrupted.